what's up? This is Lesean Thomas. I'm here in Tokyo, Japan, and this is Theorematic. I moved out here in 2017, the end of September, to start an animated television series based off of a pilot that I got crowdfunded on Kickstarter a few years ago. So, yeah, you know, it's called Cannon Busters. It's an action-adventure fantasy series, and you know, we raised some finances to produce a pilot. You know, got the pilot done in 2016. Netflix saw it in 2017 and hollered at me, curious about how I was able to get a top Japanese animation studio to provide that kind of quality as an independent American creative. And I told them the formula, and they said, you know, can you do it, you know, for a half hour, 12 more times? And I said, yeah. So we managed to link up with my intellectual property partner, Manga Entertainment, based out of the UK, Animatsu. And, you know, it was mandatory for me personally that I be here to produce the show because I don't like to outsource. And I moved here to be the showrunner and creator and director of this series. So it's a first. I definitely think being raised in one of the largest cities in the world, New York City in the South Bronx, I think that definitely informs the work that I do. You know, I'm an 80s baby. I was born in '75, so, you know, I came up in the South Bronx when hip-hop was coming up. So I was growing up as hip-hop was growing up and being exposed to Japanese animation during the anime boom in the late 80s, early 90s. So I was kind of there right on the pulse of like all of these like unique creative artistic movements, and all of that stuff informed my work. And being so curious about where Japanese animation came from, I always had a dream and a passion to, at someday, either work with them or, if it was required of me, to relocate and live there and work within the animation industry. But to get there, I needed to get my skill set up. So that, you know, required me to learn about the industry. And by working in the television animation industry, I learned that a lot of my animation is produced in South Korea, if not most of it. So, you know, after doing work in LA for a few years, you know, I came up with a harebrained scheme to relocate to South Korea and have a Korean studio hire me so that I can get personal experience abroad in the Korean animation industry, building relationships with talent, directors, studio producers, so that I can finance my own opportunities to create my own stuff without relying on the networks to reach out to the Korean studios. If I'm just there, I can just work with the talent myself. So I was able to do that. And yeah, so being raised in New York City, living in Seoul, and now living in Tokyo, producing television animation, all three of those cities, you know what I'm saying, I was there for animation. It's becoming less of a serendipitous thing and more like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do, you know, so. I think for me, you know, first things first is that like my path is not a normal path. It's an unorthodox path. Even now, being in it, living it, I'm still trying to figure out, okay, what's my next move? So there's no 12-step process to this. Like, that's not how life works, right? So for me, if we're talking about how to do the types of things I'm doing, I feel confident speaking on that because I know for a fact, after speaking to so many different schools, you know, I spoke at Pratt, I spoke at SCAD, I spoke at RISD, and a lot of these kids in these schools, and I've spoken at a lot of nonprofit organizations as well for, you know, for at Troubled Youth. There is a large population of young brown girls and boys who want to work in this industry and particularly want to work in this medium and in this region in Japan. So I feel like the only way you can do it, and this is probably the most boring, canned response I can give, is you have to put in the work, you know. There's a lot of talk about why there aren't that many people of color in animation, and it's always asked with this sort of connotation that there's some sort of big brother, you know, bottleneck preventing black people from from getting in this field, and I just don't agree with that. I do think there are some, you know, prejudiced forces at play, but I would start to believe that that's what's keeping us from blowing up if there were 100 Lesean Thomases and they couldn't somehow get put on, you know what I mean? Or if there were 100 Lesean Thomases and they were putting out their content all on YouTube and it's better than the stuff that's on TV and they're still somehow not getting put on. When we get to that stage where everybody's on that level of experience and we're still not getting put on, then I could probably blame the large narrative, but we're not even that good, you know, and I'm not afraid to say that, you know, like until you see brown girls and boys being just as good directors and producers in animation and TV animation as we see brown girls and boys as directors and producers in live action TV, then I think that's the key to, you know, being able to see more versions of us. We have to overcome the obstacles in our community and our family that don't look at animation as a lucrative career move. I think it starts there first. You know, I've mentioned this before, we talked about this, but I believe one of the largest obstacles for brown girls and boys of color to get into obscure mediums like animation and gaming is their family and their environment. If you're in an environment where you want to do obscure things like animation, and in that environment you're subjected to being bullied and being ridiculed, it's going to be harder for you to find a self-esteem at a young age, you know, to move forward and overcome those obstacles. And even if you are in that environment, your family has to be supportive of it. Because a lot of times you'll have a family who's supportive, but your immediate circle, you know, ostracize you for doing something different, or vice versa. So I think it starts at that level first. I think if we can get, to me, I'd be happy if there's 100 Lesean Thomases or whatever doing crazy dope work on their own, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter what the larger studios are thinking, you know what I mean? So I think that's the key to get into a space where there are more opportunities like this happening. We have to be serious about the work. In order to be serious about the work, you gotta be boring. You know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta spend large hours of the day by yourself. You know, to be good at anything that requires what we do, which is stationary, you gotta be by yourself for a long time, you know? You gotta put in 8 to 10 hours a day. You can't go out on the weekend. Maybe you can't hit that club this time. Shorty gotta hold off, you know? Maybe you're going to, you know, like there's a lot of self-discipline that comes to doing what we particularly do as creatives, especially animation, you know, an industry where you have to sit down for a long time and do good work. So how do kids develop that aptitude? It's a combination of environment, family, and, you know what I'm saying, self-discipline. And there's another scary part to all this, is that no matter how passionate you are about this shit might not be for you. You might not be built for it, and that's okay too, you know? And I think we have to start being okay with those situations. So. A lot of times as a kid, whether you're black, white, Asian, or whatever, we're still human beings, we're still emotional creatures. So nobody likes to be told that what they're doing isn't good enough. So you're always going to be faced with that opportunity, that situation where the stuff that you're doing isn't that good. But if you have confidence in yourself, then you'll be okay. And some people confuse confidence with arrogance, you know. Confidence is really just being aware of what your shortcomings are, knowing you're going to improve. And if you can have that mindset, then being whacked for a good 5 years is okay. Because that's really the truth. You're going to be whacked for a while before you get good. Everybody was whacked for a while. Miyazaki was whacked for a long time before he got good. You know, he didn't just start coming out the gate making Spirited Away, you know. He didn't do Spirited Away till he was like 50. You know, his first movie opportunity was, he was 40 years old. Right. You know what I'm saying? People forget that. Like, it takes a long time to get nice. So if you're okay with failure, then I'm saying you be all right, you know, you be cool.